Hello, and welcome to the Introduction to Rigor and Relevance framework. This is Jim Warford's, this is Jim right here actually, Jim Warford's presentation on Rigor and Relevance. Jim's purpose was to come and push us toward the Common Core standards and to show us what some of the new assessments look like. He feels that we don't just have an achievement gap, that we have a relevance gap in our classrooms as well. This here is Bloom's taxonomy. Most are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy. The question here is, are we rigorous in our classroom? Warford gave us a definition of rigorous, the amount of time that we spend in the top 3 levels, and the time students spend in the top 3 levels of Bloom's taxonomy is the time that you are being rigorous in your classroom. That means we need to spend our time on analysis, we need to spend our time on synthesis, and evaluation. We'll come back to that. Daggett's application model, are we relevant in our classroom? That's the other question he's asking us. Are we relevant? A pupil of Bloom, Daggett knew that rigor was important, but he also believed that in order to close the achievement gap, we needed also to make lessons in our classrooms more relevant. He created the application model, as you see here. Level 1, knowledge in one discipline. Level 2, apply in that discipline. Level 3, apply across all disciplines or other disciplines. 4, apply to real-world predictable situations, I should say. And then 5 is apply to real-world unpredictable situations, which got us kind of trying to figure out what sort of unpredictable situations we might be finding ourselves in. Here's a quick example for you, an application model example here. In level 1, the student must list the types of propaganda. Level 2, the student must bring an example of each type of propaganda from the media. Level 3, the students examine how political cartoons have affected the perception of the masses through history. So we've gone across disciplines into history. In level 4, the students create a political cartoon based on a current topic, declaring your personal views. Now we're getting to the more real world type of position here. And then level 5, the students must create a political cartoon based on a hypothetical situation and present to a group. The group then decides which is most powerful and persuasive and why. Unpredictable. We don't know who's going to say what. It's an unpredictable situation. In this example, I think it's pretty clear which of the 5 levels a student will find relevant or interesting in their classrooms. So according to Warford, our best instruction happens when we spend our time high on Bloom's taxonomy and high in the application model. Here's his framework here. As you can see in the grid, we have 4 quadrants. They're based on a matrix. In quadrant A, we find the students spending their time with acquisition of knowledge. In B, they spend their time applying that knowledge. In quad C, the students spend time assimilating that knowledge. And finally, in quad D, they spend time adapting to and adapting the knowledge. Our best instruction takes place when we are in quadrant D. We're already there sometimes. We just don't know it necessarily. And we couldn't find our way back there when we find out, hey, this really worked and this really didn't work. Adaptation is where we want to be. This gives us a model, a map, as Warford said, that we can all talk about across all curriculum and find our way back to D when we want to get there. So what do each of the 4 quadrants look like? Here you see an example of the lessons that flows from quadrant A to quadrant D. And you can also see my awesome cutting and pasting here. Not a great slide. But in quadrant A, you see that the student is labeling the parts of a transmission. That's acquisition of knowledge in one discipline. In B, the student changes the transmission fluid using appropriate tools. These are applying to real-world predictable situations, using the right tools, changing the transmission, application. In C, quad C up at the top left there, you see a student evaluate and diagnose a faulty transmission. Now the student needs to analyze, synthesize, evaluate the transmission, not just change the fluid, not just label the parts of the transmission. We're higher in the rigor standard. But let's move that over to the application standard as well. So in D, a customer arrives at the faulty transmission. The student diagnoses the issue, estimates the price of repair, orders the necessary parts, and completes the transaction by fixing the transmission. Now the student has real-world, unpredictable situation that they're applying. You have high rigor evaluation, synthesis, and analysis, and you need to know the parts that you learned in A. You need to understand how to change the transmission fluid. You need to know how to evaluate and diagnose a faulty transmission. If you give the student D as their end game, they must learn A, B, and C before they can get there, which means they get them all. Which would you want your kids to perform? Change is coming. Technology is coming. We must get on board. It's easy to look at flipping the classroom or adapting to the new technology as something that will take too much time. After all, paper and pencil works. Standing in front of the classroom, it works. But here I am in my living room producing something that anyone can watch at any time. I don't have to recreate this over and over. I don't need to give the old 3-minute recap in the hallway as a student's either leaving my class because they're not going to be there today, or just getting back from a football game, or running, or sick, or hunting, or whatever. In the end, I produce a video, and then my work is done. And it's up to the students to begin their work. One thing that Jim said that resonated with me, actually went against everything I had believed before, was that if you're the hardest working person in your classroom, then you need a new map, a new model, a new way to teach. How many of us are the hardest working people in our classes? How many of us spend class after class repeating lessons? I'm not saying that we shouldn't be working hard. I'm saying that the kids should be working even harder. Change is coming. Our core standards, the core standards that are going to be the national standards, are heading toward the C quadrant, toward a high level of rigor. Lexile scores are going to raise. That's textbooks. That's the books you're reading in English class. That's everything. Those Lexile scores are going to raise. And our assessments, the CRT type tests, our assessments are headed to D as opposed to A. Let's take a look at this assessment. This is a great example of what our assessments will look like in the future. This is a math problem. Now, you can't really read because it's a little fuzzy there, but it's a 3-page long math problem. It's a sample item for a performance event. You can find these assessments on the Smarter Balanced Assessment webpage. In this example, the student reads about a woman trying to keep heating costs down in her home. This is relevant to the real world. In the first section of application, the student must assess the cost effectiveness of the woman's new insulation and window sealing. Now, you read this gas bills, heating degree days, and energy efficiency paragraphs here. You see the energy bill on the right-hand side. Then you see application. First, they must assess the cost effectiveness of her new insulation and window sealing, and then there are these 4 bullet points. One of which says they need to include deciding if the insulation and sealing work was cost effective while providing evidence for their decision. Now that's just application page 1. Application page 2 has them create a short pamphlet for the gas company customers to guide them in making decisions about increasing the energy efficiency in their homes. And then the pamphlet has several items that needs to be done. Math. This is math. This is real world, predictable and unpredictable, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. What do your students need to know besides the basic math required for this problem? What skills must our students have to be able to excel in the real world? So what are some final reasons to accept this model? Well, it makes us better teachers. It'll allow us to work outside of our teams and be successful. That means we can work with whatever teachers out there. We don't have to be just in our group. And the kids are going to buy into learning when we do this. Finally, here's some things that we found out, some things that we can do. If you check out the Khan Academy, especially if you're a math teacher, it's got some great lessons on math. You don't have to create these videos. You can use the videos that already have been created for you. Another way to get into this is to follow Flip Class on Twitter. And I'm not much of a tweeter or Twitterer myself, but I might get into this. Something else I learned was the 60-second recap. This is mostly for English teachers, but this model can be used. The 60-second recap model can be used in many different lessons. Gold seal lessons. Gold seal lessons are lessons that spend time in that D quadrant. Check out the Gold Seal lessons. Paul Anderson has been flipping his classroom in Bozeman. He was the Teacher of the Year in Bozeman, or in Montana this last year, and runner-up for National Teacher of the Year. If you check him out in Bozeman Biology on YouTube, you can see some of the things that he's doing in his classroom. And then also check out the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. That will help you see some of the assessments that are coming our way. All right, so this has been the Rigor and Relevance Framework recap from Jim Warford's MEA Days presentation to Big Fork High School. Thanks.